Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we are going to have such a great conversation. I am absolutely delighted to be speaking with another cancer warrior, another survivor, because we're going to be talking about not only how we, get through this icky nastiness, but more importantly, how rather than just surviving, we are thriving. And so please join me in welcoming Sean Wachter to our program today. Welcome, Sean. How are you?
Doing great, Deb. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to being on the program.
I know we are going to have so much fun talking about so many things because you have done so much and it's just such an inspirational story. So let me tell people a little bit about you and then we will dive into this. So Sean Wachter is a business development manager for Gig USA. He is a husband and a father of two young girls, one of which is only about a month old. He also happens to be a former two-sport collegiate athlete, a former pro football player, and after battling and surviving a rare form of melanoma, he finds himself using wrestling, of all things, to raise awareness and funding for cancer research, all while finishing his MBA and working with several major cancer organizations. So again, Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, I always like to ask my guests how they got to where they are today. And you are obviously going to have a very fascinating story. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I guess the best place to start would be the beginning of my cancer journey.
Mm-hmm.
I was 31 years old. As I like to tell people, I was alive. I was living, but not living a fulfilling life or my best life for that matter. I was what I would kind of call almost like a meathead frat boy. I unfortunately was coming off of a very bad injury that cost me my ability to walk for a little while. I had broken my neck and back and took a little over 9 surgeries to get that squared away. But, I was kind of just, like I said, I was just living. I had a few small businesses.
Kind of living the dream.
At that point, I'm floating along. I'm dealing with what life is throwing at me, but what it threw at me on September 26th of 2016, I couldn't have never predicted. Essentially, I had wound up having a massive stroke in my parents' living room. And that stroke was caused by a golf ball sized tumor in my cerebellum, which we later found out to be stage 4 melanoma that had metastasized to my throat, lungs, kidney, bowels, and worst of all, my brain and spinal cord, and then to the spinal cord fluid, giving me leptomeningeal disease. So I've battled that over the past 7 years. And today I sit here talking with you, not only in absolute gratitude, getting to have this experience by sharing my story with you, but also getting to say that confirmed by Sloan Kettering, I am the only documented cured case on record of my cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel I have a great responsibility not only to bring awareness to people, but I've also, through Sloan Kettering, have been participating in a great number of research projects for them, donating tissue samples, fluids, blood, whatever they may need, extra scans, because I don't want to be one of one. I want to be one of a million. And hopefully, as advances are made, I want to not have anyone else be a statistic and just let us all live our lives. So that's kind of how I've gotten here, with a few little interesting twists and turns along the way.
I know, and those twists and turns are the things that about get you, right? That was me when I went through all of mine. I was doing perfectly fine until I had the complications. Um, it's one of the things that you talk about, and you mentioned, is that we want to bring awareness. So let's start by talking about melanoma, because a lot of people go, "Oh yeah, skin cancer, not a big deal," um, and obviously it is, because I had basal cell carcinoma, which that actually sounds worse, right? It was
That's
easy to treat. I mean, they took the little thing, they went, and that was it. I have a scar, but I told him, I said, "Don't you be messing up my tattoo, because it says warrior. We don't want that messed up, right?" Um, and so, but clearly, melanoma is one of those where it can get very bad very quickly, and as you know, you have absolutely no idea. So talk to us more about what people need to know about melanoma.
I think with melanoma, the thing is for the majority of folks is frequent skin checks,
Mhm.
looking for what they like to call the ugly duckling,
Yep.
which is the mole that really
Hmm.
doesn't look like it belongs.
Hmm.
Um, People think though that melanoma doesn't really deal with people that have darker skin, maybe people that are
Hmm.
African American, but what a lot of people don't realize is the famous reggae musician Bob Marley, he
Hmm.
actually died from melanoma.
Right. It's
And
actually harder to see when you've got some issues.
well, for with Bob, for example, he had noticed a spot underneath his big toenail,
Hmm.
and he had thought that someone stepped on his foot during a soccer
Right.
match. And as the
Yeah. No big
things
deal.
bigger and bigger and bigger, all of a sudden it became an issue, and that's
Hmm.
unfortunately how we lost Bob Marley.
Hmm.
Now we've had great advances
Hmm.
in treatment just in the last 10 years alone. So, hopefully if Bob Marley was here today, he would still be here today because of all these wonderful advances
Hmm.
in treatment we've had as a result of clinical
Hmm.
research.
Right. And of course, the big thing is, as you said, if it looks unusual, the spot that was on my arm, it was this little thing. I mean, smaller than a pea, this time, and it just would not heal. It kept bleeding. And so my thought was, I just kept banging it, right? That's why it didn't. And stupid me, I had it for many months before I pointed it out to the doctor, who sent me to the dermatologist immediately. Um, but it's one of these where at any age, we need to, I fondly now call my visits to the dermatologist the strip and spins. you know? And but we need to do that, maybe not for the dermatologist, but have someone, give you a glance over, because you can't see half your body.
I monthly have my
Mhm.
wife do that
Yep.
for me, and I feel bad for her, and she may lose her eyesight prematurely, but she's responsible for that. She signed up for it.
She knew what she was getting into, but you are an
Yes.
athlete, so it's I'm sure that makes a little bit of a difference.
She calls me Al Bundy.
Ah, oh no, oh no. Um, and but it's one of those types of things that we do need to look for and catch. My generation, I'm probably almost, not quite old enough to be your mother, but pretty darn close. Um, we used to go out in the sun and bake bake, bake, bake. And we did the stupid things like putting baby oil and iodine on our bodies. Well, my friends turned this gorgeous shade of brown, and I peeled. Well, first I turned into a lobster, then I peeled, and then I was white again. And I was like, well, this isn't working. But watch those places. If your arms, obviously your head. My father had multiple places surgically removed from his ears, because he'd just get these little things on his ears, and they would just take them off. And like most things like this, most of the time it's nothing. But the key is that we want to make sure that if it's something, we catch it very early.
Well, I think another thing too is another outlier of a school of thought that's also often missed, other than perhaps people that, like I said, are African American,
Mhm.
is younger people as well.
Right. Yeah.
Young-
We're like, no, old people get cancer in
younger
general, right?
I don't think people realize, and this applies to many of life
Hmm.
choices, the decisions and choices we make when we're younger
Hmm.
impact our health to where we are today,
Hmm.
whether it be smoking,
Hmm.
drinking, whatever activities.
Hmm.
But, being out in the sun and worshiping the sun at a young age, it doesn't make you any more impervious to the DNA damage
Right.
that goes on. When I was in college. I worked at a very famous nightclub known as Neptune's in the Hamptons.
Mm-hmm.
They encouraged us as security staff, and I was almost a 300-pound man at the time.
Yeah, you did play. You did play football. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was an offensive lineman in college. That's what
Oh,
the
you big dude.
That's what it is at 63 and 68 behind me. And everyone goes, "Oh, what are those? Your big brother's jerseys?" As I said,
Nope.
But the point is, they would encourage us to walk around wearing these really skimpy tank tops to show our physiques. And, we're standing
You were
there.
to be intimidating.
Like you said, we're basking, we're putting the oil on, we're doing all this stuff. And I'm sitting there at 21 going, I don't need no sunscreen. I would shave my head. I wouldn't wear a hat. And, it's things like that when 10 years later, I'm laying in a hospital bed holding, hey, I need a transfusion, stroke team, Rubin 5. Like you're sitting there going, wow, I wish I would have wore sunscreen.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that is one of the things. Now, just like people who smoke 2 packs a day sometimes don't get lung cancer, and people who, all these various things, there's not anything that is 100%, yay or nay. But sunscreen really is pretty simple, to do. And, we just need to embrace the fact that it's okay to not be this golden glow of tan. And again, any skin type needs to be wearing sunscreen. It's anybody just needs to be doing that. If you're going out, why not protect and do a little moisturizing at the same time so you don't look, old and wrinkled long before you're supposed to. Well, you have, as I said, you have done so much with your life in these short span of time. You have a wonderful wife, 2 daughters. And I think a big part of, all of this is that we just go on. But, so many times it's hard, right? It's, you just want to say, I'm tired today. How do you get through the I'm tired todays?
Well, it's there's 2 biggies when it comes to as far as, keeping out there and going at it. And then for me, there's one other one for just, the whole overall attitude. And I break it down into the 3 key points of my cancer journey at the beginning. So as far as, keeping on going in a macro sense, so to speak, I would have to credit that greatly to a wonderful motivational speaker who happens to be a former collegiate football player, much better in all areas than myself. But the gentleman's name is Inky Johnson, and he played for the University of Tennessee. He was projected first round draft pick in the NFL draft. Freak accident, man lost use of his arm and almost his life. He was the sole breadwinner and provider for his family. I believe he had about 9 brothers and sisters living in a very small 1 or 2 bedroom house. And he had thought that was it. He let everyone down. The dream was over. He might as well just die. And he thought to himself, and this is in a YouTube video, It's Not About You by Inky Johnson, where he talks about how when he was ready to throw in the towel, he realized all the people that rallied around him, all of his teammates, his friends, his family. And he said, I didn't want my friends to lose their friends. I didn't want their teammate to lose their teammates to lose their teammate. I didn't want my mom to lose her son. I didn't want my brother and sisters to lose their brother. And that's how I kind of looked at it, because I was so fortunate to have such a big support system, such a huge support system between my family, between my local community, but also too, I must have had a steady rotation of 30 college and high school football teammates that all took bringing me to the hospital, the doctor, come to the hospital, had parties in the hospital room. But as far as now, number 2, as a day-to-day sense to keep on going, right off the bat, I think to the beginning of when I got sick and when things started to get a little bit better, and I said to myself, hey, you know what? That 12 weeks they gave you, now we're going to keep running with this. And I had to think back to 2014. famed sportscaster Stuart Scott, who worked for ESPN, who unfortunately passed from cancer. He accepted the Jim Valvano Courage Award.
Mm-hmm.
And the V Foundation is something very near and dear to me.
Mm-hmm.
I do happen to do a little advocacy work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Great organization, and we could talk more about them later.
Oh,
but
definitely. Mm-hmm.
the quote that Stewart gave was something that stuck with me all the way through, and that was, when you die to cancer, it doesn't mean you lose to cancer.
Right.
You beat cancer by living, and in by the which manner in which you live,
right.
So live.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was something that was like, you're not meant to sit here and die on your sword.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to group it in, and I'm sorry for kind of perverting your question here a little bit.
No, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Let me get that third one in there, which doesn't necessarily have to do with going from either a macro or micro sense. It's more so along the lines of what really kind of smacked me in the face and said, hey, you're not going to cry. You're not going to feel bad. You know, when I got out of the local hospital I was in, you know, and all the prednisone and Decadron and all the good stuff they gave me started to wear off, that with that lovely moon face. You know, the next stop for me was Memorial Sloan Kettering. And at the time, they didn't have their radiation units segregated. So you had Sloan Kettering kids, which wasn't known as Sloan Kettering kids then. And you just had the regular adults all in the same room. And I'm sitting there with folks that are my age at the time, 31, but they weren't patients, they were parents. And I sat there at 31, as I said, self-described, frathead meat boy, you know, meathead frat boy, you know, and I saw these kids and I said, you know, I've made every mistake a 31-year-old man could make. You know, I've lived 3 lifetimes in 31 years. I said, all these people, sorry, Sean, I feel bad for you. Like, no, don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel bad for me. I had a great life. You know what? These poor kids, they haven't even had a chance to steal a cookie yet. And that was the moment that kind of really defined for me, like, this is how we're going to go about it. And then the subsequent 2 other videos and quotes really just kind of set the pace for all the great things that I got to accomplish while being sick, which it's like, wow.
Right. Well, and you even tell people, you know, having cancer might have been one of the best things that could happen to you.
Oh, you know, I tell people this all the time, and I like to look at their reaction because, you know, you and I are in a special club.
Right. We didn't want to be, but that's all right.
We don't want to be, but you know what? We're here. It's cool. There's lots of cool people. They got good music. You know, we can't complain.
Yeah.
But, you know, I tell people, and I look to see their face. I always say cancer was the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me, because it was a very humbling experience. I'm a spiritual person. I won't get all preachy and religious, but I felt that when I had my neck injury and back injury, that was whatever higher power was there going whap, giving me a smack on the back of the head. And then, you know, I still not, hey, look, I wasn't out there doing terrible things, but you know, it wasn't like I was going to be going for sainthood anytime.
Right. Your mother probably raised her eyebrows at you numerous times.
Yes. Yeah. She wasn't trying to get the frozen TV dinner to whack me with. But, you know, cancer gave me another big old whap to the back of the head. And I think that was the one I needed, because when someone says you have 12 weeks to live and you're as stubborn as I am, you just kind of like want to rage against the machine. And as I started to get better through, as I said, these clinical trials I was involved with, and it just gave me more to keep going. But all of a sudden, it was like someone took the wool over my eyes. It's like, wait, this is real fulfilling life. And in the 7 years that I battled cancer, you know, I got to go on amazing trips with pretty much most of the 30 gentlemen that gathered behind me. You know,
wow.
Yeah, we called that the Sean Wachter death tour. We kind of which, unfortunately, when the tour came to a conclusion, I still had plenty of road miles on me.
Yeah, you're like,
And I
okay.
said, wait a moment. Yeah, well, I was like, wait a moment. That money would have been nice right now. Shoot,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. Oh
And
well.
guys,
Mhm.
I made it. Can you chuck back
Yeah.
in here? But
Yeah. I got to pay my rent.
we had an awesome time with that, and also too, I got to go on some great trips with my dad,
Mhm.
and then also too during that period, once things really started to stabilize, which no one would have ever thought, I said to
Mhm.
my dad, I said, I'm not going to rot away on your couch here. I'm going to go back
Mhm.
and I'm going to coach football because I got to
Ah.
do something.
Mhm.
And I had coached high school football for 9 years,
Mhm.
and two of those nine were spent at Long Beach High School here in New
Mhm.
York. And I picked Long Beach just because they were close to the house, but also too, I had a friend who already coached in the program and said,
Mm.
we don't have the budget for another coach.
Mhm.
Knowing the area and the demographics, a lot of Section 8, a lot
Mhm.
of kids
It's an
coming.
inner city. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot of kids coming actually in from Queens
Mhm.
over a bridge into Long Island and claiming residency.
Mhm.
So an abundance of kids, not enough eyes, not enough
Mhm.
attention. And that's always something that struck hard with me because
Mhm.
I've had dealings with kids before. And I firmly believe there are no bad kids. You
Mhm.
just need to give them
Right.
a little bit more.
Mhm.
And that was so fulfilling, getting to go back and to give back to a program and let these kids see me go through my struggle,
Mhm.
but then also too to get to look at their own struggles and appreciate my own parents a little
Mhm.
bit more.
Mhm.
So that was so fulfilling, and I like to tell a little story from that time, which is a little bit embarrassing for me, but I say, you know what, it just speaks to people because
Mhm.
I mentioned before community, and
Mhm.
not to get political or anything. Someone once said it takes a village.
Right. Mhm.
Well, I believe that cancer takes a community, and
Mhm.
it's all about your community, the
Mhm.
people around you.
Mhm.
So I had gotten chemotherapy on a Friday morning,
Mhm.
and it happened to be a holiday here. I forget which one on Long Island. And the kids were having a game at a very tough school district
Mhm.
and a really tough neighborhood.
Mhm.
And to say they were a little intimidated would be an understatement, but
Mhm.
I'm coming from one of my 120 rounds of Opdivo.
Wowza.
Yeah. And unfortunately for me, I got a little bit of tummy problems from
Mhm.
Opdivo.
Right. That happens. Mhm.
Some people call it colitis. We just call it tummy problems in this house.
Right.
So uh, I went right from Sloan Kettering's Nassau facility, which was about maybe a mile down the road from this particular high
Mhm.
school, and it was nasty. It was pouring rain. It was
Oh.
it was
Mhm.
everything you could have thought like you didn't want to deal with for
Right.
like
Mhm.
this. And my friend had gotten the kids starting to warm up, and I coached the linemen.
Mhm.
And I went to get off the exit there and park my car. And then I said to myself, "Oh goodness, here comes the tummy problem." So
Yes. Uh-oh. Mhm.
right to
Mhm.
instead of jogging over to my players, I went right to the bathroom, and
Mhm.
there was a little bit of blood, and
Mhm.
cleaned ourselves up, got
Yep.
back out there, got to tend to business, and
Mhm.
I noticed my football players there, my linemen, kind of doing this weird hover stance where they're not putting their hand on the ground, and
Mhm.
they're kind of like huddling together, like
Mhm.
shivering. And I go running over doing my best pseudo drill instructor
Mhm. Yes. Rah, 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 rah. Mhm.
yeah, like what are you doing? Maybe with a few other choice words that I'll
Mhm.
spare your audience and yourself. And they said, "Coach, it's raining. We don't want to get our gloves wet."
Oh.
And I said, "Are you blanking
Mhm.
kidding me? I
Mhm.
just came from the chemotherapy chair
Mhm.
and I just went in that bathroom and blanked blood.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're telling me it's too wet for your gloves.
Yep.
What's your blanking excuse?"
Mhm. And they went. Punk.
They kind of like it snapped with them.
Mhm.
But what puts a nice punctuation on the story for me is I went to practice. I think it was 4 days later because I had to go
Mhm.
into the city on that Monday for some
Mhm.
scans. And there was over 50 young men wearing gray t-shirts that on the front said beach football. So I thought nothing of it. And they said, "Coach, look." And they turned around and on the back was a black melanoma ribbon, and it said Coach Wacht Strong. And then underneath it in big capital letters said, "What's your excuse?"
I love it. Oh, I just got chills.
I did my best to hide behind my sunglasses, but it did not work.
Right. And you know what? Manly men cry.
No, no, of course. And these were kids that I didn't want to worry, because at the end of the day, they still are young men. They're still growing.
And they had enough going on in their own lives.
And there was about 2 or 3 times that I had to grab my buddy by the shoulder and say, "I can't see," because the swelling would get so bad. And he'd walk me around the corner, and we'd call either an ambulance or one of my parents. But we did that, and we coached football. And then my folks said, "You know what? I think you should maybe make an effort to put yourself out there, being you're still here and still going strong." And I said, "All right, I guess I'll do that." Things were stabilizing, like I had said, and progressively getting better. And that's when my wife and I started dating.
I love it.
Yeah. And, it was so amazing. I had, as almost like a cathartic exercise, I had made Facebook posts every time I had gone to get chemotherapy or a scan. And my mother kind of asked me to do it because she was dealing with a lot of the weight of having to, keep people informed.
Right.
She said, just told people what's going on through the Facebook posts, even if it's just like, "Hey, I'm okay." So who am I to say no to my mother? I'm her only son.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm not gonna burden her with that. I burned her with enough, and still do to this day. But I said I'll make these posts, and I realized my now wife, as I look back on it, was liking all of them all along the way.
She was stalking you.
I wish she would. That would be so flattering. But no, it just, Cindy had gotten through a difficult divorce, and Cindy had a 13-month daughter at the time, and we started to talk again. We went on our first date, unbeknownst to both of us, which when she hears this, she'll probably go, because she doesn't like the story. But she and I actually were born 13 days apart, five houses away from each other on the same block. So
Fate.
After I went home and told my mom, about how great this like 6-hour lunch was with this amazing girl, she said, "Well, that's actually the first girl you ever hung out with, because you guys used to go up and down the block together in the stroller."
Wow.
So we started to date. And she asked me if I would help her raise her daughter a few months later. And that to me was, and still is, one of the greatest accomplishments I ever had. She's almost 8, as you so wonderfully shared. We just had a child of our own, our miracle baby. And I tell my stepdaughter all the time, because, it's kids worry, am I going to, I said, "No, sweetheart, you're always going to be number one to me." I said, you're the only reason why I wanted to have your sister, which is the truth. I didn't want kids. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to buy a house. And then I met my wife again, and I doubled down on 2 and said, "Oh, well, might as well do the marrying and buying in the house as well."
Yep. You're going to have to be grown up now.
But, so I did that. And then on top of that, at that time when I was still sick, I said to myself, I'm worried I'm not going to leave them with enough, because I was doing my best to, Cindy had a great job. Cindy is just now left the workforce because we wanted her to do what our mothers had done.
Right. Be able to stay home and raise, the kids, which that's wonderful.
But Cindy is a 14-year veteran of one of the largest school districts in the country. I guess I could say New York City DOE, because she doesn't work there anymore, and whatever. But anyway, 14 years of that, being a special education teacher on the elementary level, which, if anyone knows the area, it takes a special person.
It does take a very special person.
Much like it takes a special person to marry me and deal with me every day. But I was worried that I was not going to be able to supplement or give enough. I had made a lot of good financial decisions. But essentially the day I had money for one person, not for 3. And I wanted to get to a situation where I could have money for 3. And even if I was no longer here, then at least they would be able to benefit, and there would be something for her daughter's college fund. So I actually got together with 2 former friends of mine, and we started one of the largest independent coffee chains on Long Island. And what I'm proud of the most is I wound up having to learn, not that I wanted to, that's why I said former friends, story for another day. I got to learn every single aspect of the coffee business
Okay.
while being sick and dealing
Yeah.
with chemo and everything. So I had so many days where I would go from about 5 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning on infusion days, scan days, and you know how those can
Good
be.
thing you sold coffee.
Oh man, yeah, no. And you know, I got to do some pretty neat things. And one of those neat things was, growing up on Long Island here, we have the Nassau Coliseum, which has now been since replaced by UBS Arena, which is a heck of a lot nicer and more modern.
Yeah.
But the Nassau Coliseum, if you're a Long Islander, that's the home of the Islanders and their four Stanley Cup in the early
Hey, my
80s.
abs have too.
Okay, hey, I'm not a hockey guy. I'm not. I'm just I'm a football and wrestling guy. Maybe I'm a lacrosse guy too, but when is that on television that often?
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit more popular. But anyway, in Nassau Coliseum, home of Billy Joel, and also too,
Right.
WrestleMania 2 and all these other big things. So one of the cooler things I got to do was playing in the Arena Football League. I had actually gotten to briefly play there for the New York Dragons before they sent me over to the New Jersey Revolution. And as someone who grew up on Long Island, like I said, that's our arena. That was
Right.
our arena. So when I was sitting in my chemo chair at Sloan Kettering, I noticed that they were bringing back professional indoor lacrosse to that arena. And I always tell people, from my chemo chair, I brokered start to finish not only a sponsorship, a partnership, but a consulting deal for myself with that particular lacrosse team. But I was also able to negotiate rights, agreements, fees, everything for a full-on concession overseeing of the Coliseum.
Wow.
So I made some pretty cool business deals while having some pretty funky stuff pumped into my arm. So I always, that's the one thing I like to puff my chest about when it comes to cancer. Like, oh, you had a tough day at the office. Well,
Yeah. Let me tell you about mine.
let me tell you about my office and my cubicle mate or whatever they
Yeah.
call it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and what I love about what you're saying is that yeah, we do have down days. As but you just got to keep going. And not only did you keep going, you kept up in the ante, right? Do that. Well, fine, we're going to do that and this. And I love that. And clearly, everybody's journey is different. I actually had treatment yesterday. So I was in there, I was hooked up.
Warrior you are.
And yeah, I mean, you just, you keep going merrily along. I'll need extra coffee today and probably a nap or two, but yeah, but the lady next to me, turns out we had the same birthday. So that was really funny because, what's your name and what's your birthday? And I was like, hey, that's my birthday. Because, I don't just go and sit, right? But she had two friends with her. And and they were having a good time visiting. But my assumption was it was her first time, because a lot of times people do bring somebody for their first time. And that moral support. There have been times where I have known that it's somebody's first time, and I'll go sit by them, if they're back there by themselves, and things like that. But she was having a good time, and so I finished much earlier than she did because my treatment takes a whopping 30 minutes. And so it takes me longer to drive there. But and so as I was leaving, I was wishing her luck and a happy early birthday, and all that good stuff. And so I said, is this your first treatment? And she said, no, this is my last treatment, and we are here to party. And I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. But it is about just keeping going. I told her, I said, I always figure if I wake up and I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, it's a good day. But it is about priorities. I mean, when I'm having a day where I'm like, pitiful me. Oh, a commercial will come on for, say, Wounded Warriors. Okay, that right there, that is, nothing compares to what they have been through and what they have given to us and to the country. And then another commercial will come on and it will be for St. Jude's. So back to kids with cancer. It's just you start to feel sorry for yourself, and then you see somebody who's worse. And so then it's like, well, get yourself up. And I don't care, folks, you might, what it is that you do to do that, because sometimes getting from the bed to the chair might be the biggest thing you can do that day, and that's okay. You don't have to go out and start businesses and broker deals. It's do what you can. And I specifically mentioned St. Jude's because that is one of the organizations that you have supported with some of the advocacy and fundraising efforts that you've done.
Yeah, it's that's a pretty neat little note on to my life itself. So when I was a senior in high school, I wanted to get involved with professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Truth be told, it's something that I've been wanting to be involved with and have loved since I was a little boy. Like when I was growing up, it was Ghostbusters and WWF at the time. I'm a big Hulk Hogan guy.
I was going to say that was about the time period of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, I always joke with my father. I said the biggest mistake you ever made was sitting me down in front of WrestleMania 5. So anyway, I tried to do it when I was a senior in high school, and growing up with a police detective for a father, he finds out that you're not going to Bible study on a Sunday morning, and you're actually you're going to a warehouse and almost in the middle of nowhere industrial area to learn how to call. Yeah, don't sit too well with him. And
no, you went back to Bible study, I'm guessing.
Yeah, no, because he looked at it this way. You have an opportunity to have a scholarship for football, in college. I've worked very hard my whole life and can send you anywhere you want, but I have an ability to have a coupon, a discount.
Yeah.
And you're trying to take away my coupon and discount.
Yeah, so stop that.
He goes, so I'm going to be taking away your bed. So you better stop doing this wrestling stuff. So
yeah, okay. You're going to school on that football scholarship.
I played by his rules that time. Wound up playing in the Arena Football League for about a cup of coffee. Shoulder problems kind of curtailed my football dreams, but local wrestling promoter asked me if I wanted to get back involved, and I gave it a shot. I trained a little bit over in New Jersey, and then I said, you know what, if I'm going to be really serious about this, I should come on home and do this. And I started doing it here on Long Island at a local school. And unfortunately, like I said, unrelated, had that really bad neck injury. And that came a few weeks after a scout from the WWE was down at the facility looking at somebody else actually and said, oh, let me see the big guy.
Bummer.
Let me see the big guy move around a little bit. And then they had someone beat me up for 5 minutes in front of them. And they said, okay, well, if you learn how to speak German, of all things, we'll get you down to Florida. And that's where they have their now what they call their performance center and everything like that. So
the training center, or
loosely hear that, you walk out of that place thinking you're the king of the world, but then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, like I said, really bad injury.
Right.
And just that was it, unrelated to wrestling. It was just even stranger. But fast forward, while we're still in active treatment, I'm leaning heavy on this wrestling. You were talking about how you had treatment yesterday. And some people go for the comfort or the support. After I got past wanting someone to come with me, when I would go to treatment, and no one would laugh at me, but I know that they were, and I'd even laugh at myself. I would park my car purposely across the street from Sloan Kettering in Nassau. And like I said, across the street was more across the parking lot because they shared.
It's not a short walk.
They shared parking lot space with the Nassau Coliseum. So, like I said, so much stuff went on there for myself as a young adult and as a businessman. And I just used to get out of my car. I'd look at that. I went to high school, not even a block away at a private high school. And then, the local college that I had started at was, so we're at the crossroads of all my battlefields. So I used to throw my AirPods in and I'd put out, some sort of heavy metal music, and I would treat it like it was my entrance. Like, okay,
you were going dun 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 dun, right?
We're going for our fight. So, I bought wrestling into my house here, and it's something that I got to share with my stepdaughter. And
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to great lengths to explain to her, sweetie, this is like ballet. They're friends. They're
Mm-hmm.
putting on a performance.
Right. Yeah.
They're not really hurting one another. Because
Mhm.
I don't need my wife telling me, oh, great, we just got called down to the school because she
Yeah.
bought.
My daughter's down there saying, my daddy beats up people.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, my stepdaughter had wanted to go to wrestling, and I knew that some of the stuff sometimes does on TV is
Mhm.
just it's a little bit calmer
Right.
nowadays, but I still, like to make sure I know what's going to
Mhm.
go on.
Right.
So I'll watch a lot of the
Mhm.
stuff I show her. And I said, you know what, we're going to take her to what they call a live event as
Mhm.
opposed to a
Mhm.
TV taping, because the live event is basically just a quick 2 hour show where
Right.
it's just matches, no real
Mhm.
talking, very minimal.
Right.
So we went to this show, and while we were on our way to this show, I actually had gotten my phone call that my DNA test came back that I was the only person who had beaten their cancer.
Wow.
And at that point, my stepdaughter didn't even know that her stepdad was sick.
Right.
So
Because you had protected her.
we had protected her, and I got to share with her, and it was a great touching moment for my
Mhm.
wife and her and myself, obviously. But at this point now, much like that lady had said to you, oh, I'm here to party.
Mhm.
I had a bunch of people now saying, oh, we have to have a party.
Right.
Now, not to say anyone's mindset is better than
Mhm.
anybody else, but I have very bad survivor's guilt
Mhm.
because I know, being one of one, I'm by myself. And like I
Mhm.
said, I don't want to be by myself
Right.
in this
Mhm.
situation. So it's bittersweet. So when people
Mhm.
were saying, let's party, I said, what are we celebrating?
Mhm.
They said, well, you beat it. I said, I beat it. I still
Mhm.
got people out there.
Mhm.
So they said, well, what are we going to do to change your mind? Because we got to have a great old time, and some other
Mhm.
expletives that, again, I'll spare everyone.
Mhm.
And I said, you know what? I'll meet you halfway. We'll have a fundraiser.
Mhm.
And my father, like I said, retired police
Mhm.
detective, Vietnam vet,
Oh.
very, very, very active in
Mhm.
the local Long Island
A hero.
veterans nonprofit
Mhm.
community, as far as American Legion, the
Mhm.
VFW, all these great endeavors. And he had such great acreage at this Legion Hall. I was like,
Mhm.
this would be a pretty good place to have this fundraiser. So
Mhm.
we got back here, we got our fundraiser poster for
Yeah. Cool poster. Mhm.
we did a fundraiser for Sloan Kettering kids, and the friend that kept twisting my arm to have this fundraiser said, well, what are you going to do for entertainment? And I
Mhm.
said, I don't know, a band. I don't think anyone wants to see me sing or dance. So he said, how about wrestling? And I said,
Mhm.
I may know a person or two I can call
You
and
could
see
make some calls. Mhm.
if they've got a group that could come down. He goes, well, you have to wrestle. I said, I haven't been in a ring at that point in over 10 years. And I
Right.
said, I
And you'd been through chemo and
said, I literally just like rang the bell the other day,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I was able to work out again, but I'm a little self-conscious. Anyway,
Mhm.
I got my arm twisted enough, and
Mhm.
some will argue it didn't take too much twisting, but I got back in there, and originally I was not going to do it, but then when I started to ask people, would this
Mhm.
make you want to come? And they,
Right.
yeah, of course.
Of course. Yeah, because you had that huge support
So
system.
I viewed it as a means to further generate
Mhm.
donations for Sloan
Right.
Kettering kids. So that's what wound up happening.
Mhm.
I found a veteran wrestler that I actually had my first match with long, like when I first
Mhm.
started, and he held my hand and guided me through the whole thing.
Mhm.
And it was so much fun, and we raised so much money, and it
Mhm.
was nice. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, the friend that did a lot of the arm twisting, he wound up passing away.
Mm.
And everyone started to ask, they said, are you going to do another fundraiser? And I had originally intended it for it to be a one-off. And
Mhm.
everyone said, Michael, my friend Michael Fisher,
Mhm.
would have loved to
Mhm.
do this again.
Right.
So I said, you know what? I don't have cancer anymore, and I don't want people to think I'm back in the fight, even though
Mm-hmm.
I'm still in it for others. I
Mm-hmm.
said I'm going to honor him if that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I spoke with his family, asked if I could use his name for it, and I said, "What
Mm-hmm.
charity did Michael like?" And they said
Mm-hmm.
Michael loved to give to St. Jude's.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, let's do this." So we made it now we have it as the annual Captain Michael Fisher
Mm-hmm.
Memorial Wrestling fundraisers. He was a captain in the local volunteer fire
Mm-hmm.
department, and we had a whole bunch of local media, local
I
politicians,
know. I've seen some of it. It's fantastic.
and the newspaper wanted to do a story, and I thought they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to do a story on the event, and they said, "No, we want to do it on you."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, okay," and they produced this beautiful 2-page article with
Mm-hmm.
this picture of me. I don't know if they airbrushed it, AI, whatever wizardry they did, but I actually looked pretty darn good with no shirt on, holding this championship title above my
Mm-hmm.
head that I had won on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And the V Foundation, one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
organizations, picked up on it on LinkedIn and
Mm-hmm.
reached out to me, and we're getting to do some cool stuff together.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And then as a result of that, Sloan Kettering
Mm-hmm.
further recognized me, and now we're doing some cool stuff together. And then just to complete the triad, the Melanoma Research Alliance
Mm-hmm.
reached out to me, and now we're doing some cool stuff.
Right.
So over the next couple months, there's going to be some really neat stuff coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is going to be airing on October 30th,
Mm-hmm.
but this weekend, which will be the weekend of the 21st going into the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
28th, do my quick math there.
I know. I had to look at the calendar.
Yeah. I'm going to be actually wrestling on a card, which is going to be the largest independent wrestling show in Long Island history. And, obviously I don't have any way of knowing the results ahead of the time. None whatsoever.
Right. We wish
None.
we can. We're going to say you're going to do good.
I
How's
wish,
that?
yeah, that works because I don't know these things. I would
Mm-hmm.
have no clue of how to know what's going to happen.
May
But
have to add
anyway,
it in the show notes later.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but the really cool thing for me, which just unfolded actually last night, was I purchased a few tickets for a local family that has 2 children
Mm-hmm.
that are dealing with pediatric cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be my guests at this show, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting them front row. And the family was saying that the 2 young boys are so excited, and I've made sure that the local promotion
Mm-hmm.
has carved out a healthy amount of time
Mm-hmm.
for me to be able to bring these young men into
Wow.
the ring after
Mm-hmm.
the match that I hope I win. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so and have,
They're going to win, though. That's the
yeah,
important thing.
and have the crowd properly
Mm-hmm.
recognize them, and hopefully leave them with a little bit of a memory to
Mm-hmm.
help them fight a little bit harder. And frankly, the reason why I do this, I would be lying and full of bull duty if I said I didn't enjoy the wrestling. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
to finally put the button on all of it at almost 40 years old,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little physically demanding.
Mm-hmm.
I do have some aches and ooks that, maybe my shelf life won't be as long, but
Mm-hmm.
with the wrestling, but I get out there and I do it because I want to have other folks see that not only is there life during cancer,
Mm-hmm.
but there's always a possibility for life after cancer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like you said at the beginning of the show, right now I'm working on my MBA.
Mm-hmm.
Going ahead, and I'm working on these different organizations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working my full-time job as
Mm-hmm.
a business development manager for Gig USA. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't mind, I
Oh,
just,
we need to give them a plug because they are
yeah,
a great
well,
organization.
I really thank you to them more than a
Mm-hmm.
plug. They are a great organization, but they're great people, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Keegan, who's a huge wrestling fan, which helps me a little bit here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very supportive. Hello, Paul. Danny Demas, great guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And my the direct lady that I answer to, the lady in charge over there, the VP of the company, Jean Brodus. Jean hand selected me out of all pools of applicants that she could have picked from, and she gave me a chance knowing full well, hey, that I'm just getting really started at life.
Right.
You know, they have been nothing short of wonderful. They have backed me every step of the way. And I'm dealing with all these big organizations, and I'm making, some wonderful appearances on podcasts. They've even gone ahead and supported me by getting a PR firm for me. And
Wow.
I say to people, who the heck would do that? Whose boss would say, you know what, we want to make sure you're covered while you're out there talking about wrestling? Like,
Right.
hey, that's not my job. We specialize in face-to-face fundraising, on-site event, canvassing, really helping nonprofit organizations get out there and raise their awareness, streamline their fundraising. And, I like to even call the people that we have on the field, not fundraisers, but I tell them storytellers, because we want to get out there and help those organizations tell their stories. And that, another quick one, if I can throw, I had the pleasure last weekend of actually attending Cancer for College's annual gala at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And let me tell you, I am personally involved with some wonderful organizations, but professionally, and they get my vote personally as well. But professionally, let me tell you, with the Cancer for College, they go ahead and they are providing college scholarships for cancer patients, young adults that would not normally have the opportunity to go to college. And then on top of it, they're even helping some of those students who already have been benefiting from the organization. They're helping them pay off their college debt as well. So not only are they giving them the ability to go to college, but any debt they accrue, they're canceling that out. So they're getting that second chance. And, I got to speak to a lot of these young scholars, and they had the same mindset that you and I have. Like, we went through this and it actually changed us for the better. And I told all of them, I said, I am so sorry that you didn't get to have X, Y, or Z like any other teenager or young adult, but you have been given such a gift, a blessing in disguise. And they were all so aware of it that I was humbled. I was just like, oh goodness, I wish I had this level of maturity and awareness at that age. And such wonderful people. But, to wrap it up here, as far as the organizations, like I said, the work with the V Foundation and them, coming to me and asking to do some of these projects. The reason why, other than Stuart Scott, that I'm so happy to be working with them is the fact that I didn't realize this until about a few weeks ago. I'm actually one of their success stories, and I didn't even know it. My cancer, as said, was a rare one. Like I said, I'm the only one. And the way I got to become the only one was because my doctor, Dr. Margaret Callahan at Memorial Sloan Kettering, was a member of their research efforts.
Wow.
She received funding for research for my treatment plan directly from the V Foundation. So the V Foundation, in effect, helped save my life.
It did.
The V Foundation, being they're operated by ESPN, their infrastructure comes from ESPN.
Right. So their support system of staff.
Support system comes from ESPN. So every dollar donated to the V Foundation goes directly to cancer research.
Wow.
So, it's a testament to that organization, much like Melanoma Research Alliance that I'm working as well. Their CEO, Mark Gilbert, has told me that he plans on making sure that they give $100 million to research. And I'm Kettering with their researchers. It's just people don't realize. And I guess if it is something that I could ask your audience to do, is I know that right now we're unfortunately in a time in our country and in our world even where economically things are very tight for people. Everyone, regardless of what you do or where you live, is feeling it in some way, shape, or form. And whatever you can give to any of those cancer research organizations, and not even the ones that I'm working with, any, vet some on your own, pick a cancer that maybe either you have had or someone that you love has had. 1 in 4 Americans will deal with cancer in their lifetime. So this is something that we all kind of need to band together for. And we've had such great advances in medicine and technology. And I think right now with AI and how quickly we can develop certain drugs, I really think we're on the doorstep of really making this a reality where people like you and I are, for a good reason, a thing of the past.
Right. I know. Wouldn't that be fabulous?
No, it would be. It most certainly would be. And it's something that, my mother has always said, live in hope. And
Hmm.
I think something, it's not only that we can live in it, we can dwell in it, we can breathe in it, we could
Hmm.
probably be almost one step closer to actually even feeling it
Hmm.
too. And that's what's important. I really believe, and after having some great
Hmm.
conversations, like I said, Mark Yolbert, the CEO of Melanoma
Hmm.
Research Alliance, he's not a businessman, and not taking away from him, but
Hmm.
his bread and butter is he's an MD, and he's
Right.
been on the board for
He
25
gets
years.
it.
He gets it. And
Hmm.
the conversations that him and I have had, I am, amusingly enough, not that I'm saying I'm anywhere near his level of education,
Hmm.
I have a minor in research. So I guess to kind of further step away from that as we start to bring things towards the end, I guess any advice I would give to patients, I would say advocate.
Hmm.
Advocate for yourself.
Yes.
You know, read peer-reviewed
Hmm.
articles. You know, make sure what you're reading, like I said, is thoroughly backed with
Hmm.
citation and proper research, and
Hmm.
not snake oil, so to
Hmm.
speak. But question your treatment,
Hmm.
ask questions, and if you don't feel you're well enough, bring someone with you to have a second set of ears. Not that you're saying you need someone there to
Hmm.
hold your hand and say it's going to be all right, but having a second set of ears is so powerful because, hey, even I got overwhelmed sometimes and I
Hmm.
had to go, what did they say? How did
Right.
they say this
What
stuff?
uh-huh. Hmm.
And then as far as advice that I can give caregivers, there are some of us that may need a little bit more, and there are some of us that need a little bit less. But if we're going out to the store, let that be the chance to see what we do.
Hmm.
Give us a little bit of space.
Yeah.
Give,
Don't be hovering over us.
it's all appreciated. I've
Hmm.
had to have grown men pick me up out of bed and wipe my hiney for me,
Hmm.
but under the same token, I've had to tell people, like, I can walk
Hmm.
down this. Even if I am in my
Hmm.
walker, I can still make it. Let
Hmm.
me give people a
Hmm.
feeling of independence.
Hmm.
Even if they're really not ready for it,
Right.
you can be there where they
Hmm.
don't see it, but you can still be
Hmm.
there. But that's what I'd have to say to both
Hmm.
patient and advocate if I had to
Hmm.
offer each one
Hmm.
particular thing.
I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Sean, it's you're in my head. You and I speak the same language because I tell folks all the time, you are who is in charge of your treatment. I tell people we are the warriors. When I was very first diagnosed, I saw something that said, fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior responds, I am the
Yep.
storm. But even more importantly is no warrior stands alone. We all have our tribes. And and that is just to me, that is the ultimate thing. But let's go hug our caregivers too, because sometimes it's even harder on them. They're seeing us go through this,
Oh yeah.
and and they're having to have that stiff upper lip and not act like it's bothering them. And so hug, even now, I mean, I know you hug your caregiver, but yeah, go back, and or the friends, let them know how much we appreciate everything, because we could not have gotten here if it weren't for the caregivers.
Oh, of course.
So, well, oh my gosh, what we're going to do in the show notes is I'm going to have the links to the organizations that you support so folks can get involved with them. uh,
Yeah.
even if you can't donate financially, they all need volunteers. So, that's also an absolutely fabulous way to help out. And, maybe you can't help with people, with especially if they are not doing well. That takes, a special type of person, but maybe they need envelopes stuffed or, things like that. So find ways that you can help. Or as Sean said, find those organizations that are close to you and support those. So we'll have all of that. This has been absolutely wonderful. It's been such a great conversation. Check out Gig USA, because as Sean says, they are a great organization. But yeah, we need to continue this. I mean, this is such a great discussion. And we're not putting ourselves on pedestals here. I mean, people always tell me, hey, you're my shero. I'm like, no, you guys are.
Yeah.
It's everybody around. So, this, like I said, this has been absolutely wonderful. Sean, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I think as you just said, people say, "Oh, you're a hero, you're this." No, we're all heroes.
Mhm.
And the person that gets out of bed even in the morning with this, or even being able to muster the strength to turn on the light, even if that was something you couldn't do the day before, that makes you a hero. Deb and I just have a message. Deb has a wonderful platform, doesn't mean her or I are any better or any less than. It's just we're all in this together. And that's why I said I'm not going to stop, fighting until we're all out of this, because I get up there and do what I do because if one person could say, "Hey, look at this knucklehead flopping and flipping around in this wrestling ring. Hey, he can do it, or he can go ahead and get an MBA." And he was in that boat. If one person lives a better life or fights a little bit harder, and I mean it, I'd go down the same road 1,000 times. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, I could be reached at the cancer fighter Sean Wachter on Instagram, and on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Sean Wachter. That's SeanWachter.
I love it, Sean. This really has been just, you're not going to like this. It's been inspirational. I have loved listening to you. But more importantly, I know we have inspired and others, and that was the goal of this. So, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having the best conversation with Sean Wachter. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.